So I want to talk about boxes that we were raised in, and I'm going to explain that throughout this video so that you really come to understand and feel it. And I'm sure that it will ring true to you and you'll feel just this knowledge in your heart. And there are going to be moments that you fully agree with, and there may be moments that you're not so sure about. I just want to share this concept with you because it is amazing and beautiful and wonderful, and it's kind of eye-opening, and I think that it really can help to explain some of the discontent that we feel internally throughout our lives. So, fire alarms. Fire alarms are fantastic until they're not. They hang out on the ceiling. They just kind of watch over us. They do their job. That little green light just blinks away. And then one night, usually in the middle of the night, your fire alarm just lets out this beep. And you have no clue which fire alarm is going off or where it's going off. And it's just this one squawk, randomly squawking late at night. And you know that you've got to get out of bed and go deal with this squawking because you are not going to be able to sleep. So you're just hoping it's a lower one. Maybe your step stool will be able to handle it. Praying that you don't have to trudge out to the garage and get that huge, clunky 12-foot ladder to be able to get all the way up to the ceiling to take care of this fire alarm. You might want to just roll over and nudge whoever else is in the house and say, "Hey, can you go take care of that? I'll make breakfast. I'll bring you coffee. I'll do whatever. I just don't want to leave the comfort of my warm bed. Please, can you go take care of this silly squawk that's going on?" And it's, this little, largely unobtrusive device, its only job is to watch over us. Its only job is to protect us from fire and smoke. It's to keep us safe, to keep the people inside the house safe from danger and alive. And as the operating human being, our one job is to change the batteries like every 6 months, because that means that it can continue doing its job. And if we're good and we have it on a schedule, then that means that we never have to listen to that squawking. However, if you're like me and it slips your mind, you end up getting a reminder in the middle of the night. So I got to do this ritual, and it struck me how it's kind of symbolic of life. And I know that sounds weird, but in my late night stupor, this is what came through to me. We are brought into this world by parents and raised by these loving human beings that want the best for us, and they want us to grow, and they nurture us in the ways that they have been brought up and taught by their parents, who were taught by their parents, who were taught by their parents. And as we continue on this path and journey, and they are teaching us and nurturing us, they squawk at us when we're not really walking the path that they think that we need to walk and following the rules that have been set before us. And so they encourage a course correction, which is just like this battery change. We've just got to switch it up a little bit. And sometimes that squawking can take a little bit of time to find out, to pinpoint where it's coming from and what the real issue is. And yet this is what happens. We just kind of squawk back and forth. And it goes the other way too. Kids don't like a rule that their parents have put out there. And so they squawk and they say, "That's a rule that I just need to test because I need to know where I stand, and if it's a rule that can be broken or if it's a rule that I can play around with." And kids just have to test those rules, and they have to decide through this constant battle of stretching and learning and understanding where they stand and what fits for them. And as we continue to grow up, we have this decision to make about whether or not we want to adopt the mannerisms and the beliefs and the morals and the understandings of the people who raised us, or if we want to be free to make our own choices and our decisions. And regardless, we have to find our own way, and we have to decide what labels we want to choose and what morals we want to live by. At some point, we all recognize, or we realize that it's not necessarily a battle between you and those parental units. it can often come down to it's a battle within yourself. Like, how do I feel? And it's this conflict of who and what and how and why. It's this squawking that continually goes on, and you have to try to figure out what it is. The squawking that I'm referring to in this instance is just the conflict, the personal conflict of, where do I stand in this? How do I feel with this? Is it in alignment with my inner truth to follow this path, or is it better for me? Do I feel more comfortable and positive and at peace following this way? Perhaps you were raised in a very sheltered or isolated area. Perhaps you were raised in a deeply religious family. The lack of diversity in that sheltered location could in and of itself unintentionally lend itself towards judgmentalism and racism and questions about like LGBTQ plus and other people who live different kinds of lifestyles. And just because you have not been exposed to those may mean that you are uncomfortable around it. Some religions are very strict and very judgmental in their thoughts and beliefs. And on occasion, that can come off as very challenging when you leave home and you go to college, or it's just time to move out and move on. You now move forward in this new world, and now you are exposed to different things, and you find that maybe some of those very deep religious beliefs are not in alignment with you. You find out that these people that originally you thought were someone that you should stay away from are actually really pretty damn cool people. And you love learning about different cultures and different thinking, ways of thinking and different understandings. And you get to learn just more and be broader. And it might be that while you're gone, you expand and you're starting to feel more of yourself, because now is the time that you get to come into you and you have stepped away from home and family. So this is your new step in life, in learning. And yet, while you love being yourself and you're at peace while you're out, now it's spring break and it's time to go home. And these new understandings that you have come to while you were in school or while you were working or whatever it was that you were doing that lets you move out and start to grow, perhaps those new beliefs don't really jive with the old beliefs and understandings that you were raised up in. And how do you cross that bridge? How do you bridge that gap between you and your parents? Do you talk about it and do you discuss it? Or are you aware that even discussing it might upset your parents because they still very much hold those beliefs and values very precious and deep to themselves? So how do you acknowledge that you are learning all these new things and that you are broadening your horizons and your perspective is changing, and that you are so much more accepting of so many different people, and yet your parents may not be. Your parents may not be ready to do that. So maybe you're dating somebody that you just know your parents are not going to approve of. Do you bridge that gap? How do you bridge that gap? Do you decide to go back into your parents' beliefs and marry somebody or date somebody that they would approve of? Or do you decide to be true to yourself and you say, you know what, this is love and love is love. And so I am just going to follow my heart and I'm going to do what's right for me, with a prayer that my parents will be able to accept that and that we will be able to bridge that gap and come to a common understanding. And just knowing that because your parents love you, they have got to understand and they will most likely come to love and accept whatever partner it is that you choose. They are all hurdles that every one of us has to leap over because we are all going through this shift and this understanding. So is it easier to go with the flow and not challenge your past? Or is it more in alignment with you to go ahead and break out of that box and move forward with your own truth, knowing how you feel inside? Your inner self is constantly squawking. Your inner self is giving you these little guidelines and saying, hey, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? How do you feel in this? And how do you feel in that? There are these deep personal beliefs, and these beliefs are ones that you hold on to. They are the ones that you have chosen to subscribe to, that were taught to you by your parents as you were growing up. These are the ones that are like it's service to your community, and it is this fierce loyalty to those people who are in your circle. Whatever those morals and values are, there are certain ones that you are just deeply, deeply connected to and hold dear. And then there are other ones that you're like, I'm not sure that I really like that one. How do you break free from that? How do you change that? How do you embrace this new feeling that you have about your new truth and your new direction, while still honoring your family and the traditions and the beliefs that your family has? There's always conflict in family, and that's a challenge that we have to face and we have to overcome. And yet, being true to ourselves and finding that inner peace and that inner guide, changing those batteries so that we are able to live a more peaceful, positive life, means that we have to find ways to bridge gaps. Means we have to find peace for other people and acknowledge their belief and why they believe that, and recognize that for their truth, while we still find our own new perspective and our own understanding. The majority of the time, this ends up being a hybrid, because there are going to be things that you want to bring in that are new and different, and there are going to be things you hold dear to that are old and traditional and absolutely fantastic as well. You find a hybrid, you find what works for you, and that is the new you. That is your new belief, that is your new direction, and that is your gift for yourself. So you make that hybrid, you create that new perspective, and you find your own truth. I encourage you to learn. I encourage you to grow. I encourage you to challenge. Look at what it is that you truly love to emulate. Those values and beliefs that you hold dear and are so proud of. Describe them and just like take a moment to sit in that gift and that gratitude that your parents were able to instill those values. And then maybe take a moment and think, what do I want to change? What does not quite sit well, and what would I like to be better and happier and more with? I encourage you to grow and seek and step outside that box.